On this edition of Independent Sources, wise women teaching self-defense as a means of confronting the growing number of hate crimes in the country. And civilian rights, the grassroots effort to get members of the Civilian Complaint Review Board elected by peers rather than appointed by officials.
Independent Sources, your window to the city's ethnic and immigrant communities. Your host this week, Zyphus LeBron.
We've talked about the fact that hate crimes in the United States are at an all-time high. Even here in our very diverse city, we're not insulated against these ugly acts. It was one such act that prompted the creation of the Women's Initiative for Self-Defense, or WISE. I recently sat down with Saida Nassim, the regional director of WISE New York, to talk about the organization's origins and how they plan to continue helping Muslim women and men. Saida Nassim, thank you very much for joining me in studio today.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, Saida, you're part of something called the Women's Initiative for Self-Empowerment, or WISE. Could you explain to me and the audience what exactly is WISE?
We are a nonprofit organization that trains young Muslim women to empower themselves and their communities through a variety of programs. Currently, our biggest and longest running program is called Menti Muslima, where we teach them self-defense, basic self-defense, and create and cultivate brave spaces and safe spaces for them to develop in other ways as far as leadership and entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm. So why was it necessary for such an organization to come about?
Okay, so the way that we started, our founder, Rana Abdul Hamid, had experienced a hate crime where a man had tugged at her hijab, and at first she hadn't realized what was happening. Then he basically pulled with a lot more force in an effort to pull off her hijab. And when she turned around, she saw this big guy just staring at her with so much hate in his eyes. And Rana, at that point in time, though she knew self-defense, she kind of froze in the moment. And she just tried to get away from the situation as fast as she could. But afterwards, she did not know, she wanted to talk to somebody about it. But since there wasn't a space available at the time in the community for her to go and discuss these things, she decided to make the space for it. We've been running for about 7 years, but with time we've grown to include other things, such as our WISE National Muslim Women's Summit, which started this year. And we also do lots of spaces programs, basically, which are not as extensive as our Menti Muslima program, which runs throughout the whole summer. We do lots of single sessions or 3-day sessions, things that are a lot more concise.
When you say you do sessions, what do you mean? You talk about the special, you're talking about the
self-defense.
The self-defense courses?
Mostly self-defense. There are other things too, but self-defense is basically the core of WISE.
Well, you know, you mentioned the fact that Rana Abdul Nami, the founder of WISE, had that incident happen to her a few years ago, and you guys have created a number of videos that can be seen on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I wanted to take a look at specifically one that talks about the exact same incident you mentioned, where Rana had her hijab pulled. So let's have a look. Let's take a look at that clip right now.
The grab to the hijab is a very common attack. If my hijab is under attack, what am I gonna do? Step 1, drop my chin to my chest.
If you can breathe, you can stay calm.
Step 2, then I turn. Step 3, use my elbow to her chin. 4, strike up. When you do throw a strike, oftentimes the best thing to do is just keep your hand open, because if you don't do a punch properly, you can actually break your fingers. Step 5, kick to her groin. Practice is really important. You're not just going to remember these things on the spot, especially when you're in a moment of crisis. So remember to build your muscle memory. Are you ready? Do it, Habibti. Practice. Okay, can I just say one more thing? If your hijab just comes off, sometimes you just need to let them have it. You'll find another cute scarf somewhere else.
So this is, you know, at the end, Rana kind of has a very funny outtake, but it's a very serious issue.
Yeah.
How have people been responding to those YouTube videos that you guys have posted right now?
Actually, this is a relatively new video series, but it's been shared quite frequently, at least among our circles so far, but we're actually working on outreach and getting these things out there. But the self-defense starter kit, which is what this video belongs to, is even more basic than our basic training in Menti Muslim law. So this isn't really meant to, it's meant to teach you basic self-defense techniques, but they're very case-specific.
Yes, because there are others that focus on when a shirt, for instance, your shirt gets tugged or so forth, and those
other
other
scenarios,
ones.
yeah.
Right. So how did you guys come up with those scenarios? Was it something that had happened to members of WISE in the past, and there needed to be specific issues addressed? Was that how those come?
In part, but not entirely. So like the self-defense that we teach in Menti Muslima, a lot of it's very general in the sense where anybody could experience it, like arm grabs, shoulder grabs. Like if somebody is trying to like attack you or something, like how do you deflect that? Those are not things that are specific to a Muslim or a Muslim woman like audience. But there are some things like the scarf, the hijab grab that have been like specially, I don't want to say designed, but
they've come about because of incidents that have occurred to you guys. One of the things that I'm curious about now too is, you know, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that hate crimes specifically directed at Muslims have been on the rise in this country. Have you felt, how do you feel in light of those kinds of circumstances, in light of those stories that are coming out more and more?
Definitely more afraid, and definitely I feel that I have to be more on guard than honestly ever before. Like thankfully I haven't ever actually experienced a hate crime where someone has tried to attack me or anything like that. And I feel blessed to not have experienced that. But I know like so many people who have been not necessarily attacked, but approached while in commute on the train, or harassed because of their hijab, or because of speaking another language or something. Even in my own community, a few months ago, a woman was actually killed on her way home from grocery shopping with her husband, and she was an elderly woman, and it was literally blocks away from home.
Right. And where is that? I'm sorry, your community?
In Jamaica, Queens. And that really hit close to home because I always felt that my neighborhood was relatively safe. And in my 4 years of going to college, I come home pretty late sometimes. And like my mom and my dad worry, but I don't worry too much because I think, you know, my neighborhood is safe, it's quiet, and I know how to defend myself now. And, you know, it's no big deal. But after that happening, and like after these the rise of these hate crimes, I feel like I have to watch my back. I feel like when I'm on the subway platform that of course I shouldn't stand too close to the edge as it is, but I have to watch my back. Is somebody, you know, like if somebody's walking by me, like, are they just walking by me? Or like, is somebody staring at me for too long? And it's like, it's not necessarily paranoia, but it is.
Right. But it's based in something. It's not unfounded.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you mentioned the fact that because you're now taking these courses and you're part of the WISE group, you feel a little more comfortable. I mean, has that really helped your confidence as regards to?
Definitely. I've never been in a fight before, so like learning self-defense was definitely the first step where I thought, okay, I know something about something.
Right. And who are the young women? You mentioned a lot of the young women that are involved. What are the ages of the women who are part of the WISE program? Okay,
so traditionally we've been catering to an audience in the middle school, high school age group. Recently we've been extending that a little bit to like college-age girls for our Menti Muslima program in particular, only because a lot of women in our community don't have this kind of training or background, and we want them to feel included in this. So that's been a relatively recent change. Not that there weren't college-aged girls coming into the program before, but it's like more so now. Right. But our Spaces programming, where we do like one-day workshops and whatnot, have always been open to like whoever wants to come. It's usually catered towards women, but we've done some that that are open to everybody. And it depends on the needs of that particular community that wants to bring us there.
Now, what's the reaction been from, I guess, people outside of the community? I guess, I'll say it. What's the reaction been from the men in the community? Do they support you guys as regards to learning self-defense?
In my own experience, when I told my dad that I was doing Minty Muslim Law that summer, he told me, like, you don't need to know how to fight. Like, don't waste your time doing this. And I thought, okay, Dad, whatever, I'm still doing this. And I did it. And now my parents, I think, are a lot, like, happier in my being involved in this. Like, at first, they might have been a little bit worried because they might be thinking, like, why would you be learning how to fight? Like, why are you spending your time to that? But with the rise of a lot of hate crimes and whatnot and everywhere, my parents, I think, and other members of the community are happy to see this kind of these kind of programs because we feel safer. Definitely, my mom too was a little bit worried about me doing self-defense because she thought, you should be spending your time doing better things. But now when I go to my boxing classes, I remember particularly one day, like, I was like all excited, showing her like, hey mom, look at how I wrap my hands when I first started boxing. And then she looked at me, she had a straight face, but she's like, like that silent nod of approval. And she's like, this is, yeah, you need to be doing this. So like it's changed with time. It's been mixed reactions. I know like a lot of community members, a lot of men in the community are happy, like have been off the bat. But those who might have not been as open to the idea before are opening up to it now, are like opening a lot more up to it now because of its necessariness.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're running out of time. I just want to ask two questions really quickly. One being, how would young women who are interested in your programs, how would they find you guys and how would they be able to be a part of it?
We're on Facebook. We have a website. I think Facebook is probably the better place to go in the present time. So if there are any young Muslim women who within the age group of, say, 13 to 24 years old or so, want to get involved. And the age is not really a restriction, it's more of a guideline as to which audience we aim to cater to for this particular program. If they're interested, signing up takes 2 minutes.
The other question we had for you was as regards to Hijabis of New York. It's a project that WISE is also involved in. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so Hijabis of New York is actually a project under WISE where our founder wanted to highlight the stories of like young Muslim women in New York. So it's kind of very much like the original Honey, Humans of New York. It was more of a platform to give these women voices for their experiences, where before that there hasn't really been something like it.
Yeah, kind of the reaction to it has been very positive, right?
Yeah, totally. I think it gives women the platform to express feelings that like they don't really get to express in other platforms, and I feel like it kind of like humanizes these young women,
of course,
and their experiences, and gives a lot of women to like something to relate to that they wouldn't otherwise maybe like realize that they could relate to. For example, if a woman talks about her experience with maybe depression or something, another young woman, another young Muslim woman, or even a non-Muslim woman might look at that and say, I can relate to that. And I didn't know that I would be able to relate to somebody from this demographic in this way. So it's been pretty cool.
And it's been about making safe spaces, just another place to make a safe space for young Muslim women.
Definitely.
Do the folks featured in Hijabis of New York, do they run the gamut from young to old?
So far, and as far as I've seen with Hijabis of New York, it includes more young women, but I think that includes young adults, like including people who are in college and maybe like right out of college. But I think with time it'll grow to be more inclusive of older women in the community. I have
another question, and this is, we've talked a lot about the age range of the Muslim women involved here, and from what I've seen, that there's definitely a specific block of age of Muslim women who seem to be at the kind of like at the vanguard of this. Women who are like your age and maybe a little older. Is that? Do you find that, and is it just that this generation of Muslim women in particular are becoming more vocal about the issues that they face? I think so, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of us come from immigrant families or are first or second generation, and it's a lot easier for us to break out
of these molds than it is for, say, our parents who grew up with it, who might be more hesitant to speak out about certain things, or who have become accustomed to it, so it's become their normal, but not necessarily for us. I feel like it's been empowering for both demographics, but I definitely think it is a generational thing. Not that we aren't inspired by the elder women in our communities.
Of course not. You're not minimizing their efforts at all. But
no, not at all.
All right. Well, Saida, real pleasure. Thanks for coming in.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
You can see more self-defense videos from WISE on the website selfdefensestarterkit.com. Still ahead, the effort to get members of the Civilian Complaint Review Board elected, not appointed. Thanks for staying tuned. The recent acquittal of Minnesota police officer Geronimo Yanez for the shooting death of Philando Castile has once again raised public ire over what's seen as police officers' unfettered power as a result of no real oversight to hold them accountable for their actions. In order to address this, there's an effort afoot to have the members of the Civilian Complaint Review Board elected rather than appointed to their positions. Clarissa Sosin of the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism filed this report.
Nearly 20 years ago, Juanita Young joined the ranks of a group no mother wants to be a member of. Parents whose children were killed by the police.
Through the years of learning, watching, being advised, that's how I learned. But in the beginning, I had no knowledge of what I was about to face.
Her son, Malcolm Ferguson, was shot and killed by New York City police officer Luis Rivera in an apartment building in the Bronx. Ferguson was allegedly dealing drugs in the building when he was chased down. There was a struggle, and Ferguson was shot in the head at close range. He was unarmed. Officer Rivera was never prosecuted.
It wasn't an easy road because they would try to bring up his criminal arrest record to justify what happened to him.
Young ultimately sued the city and won. Now she is an activist against police misconduct and brutality.
So we need to learn and come stronger and say, y'all gonna stop killing our loved ones. I got 5 grandkids I'm trying to give a life to. And how better not than to say, what can we do to protect the next generation?
She is also part of a coalition of groups that through grassroots activism, trainings on how to act during police encounters, voter referendums, and even art, seeks to educate the community and change the way neighborhoods are policed.
And when we talk about police violence, we're not just talking about death.
They believe there is a disconnect between the police and the communities that they serve. A disconnect which leads to unnecessary violence.
There needs to be some type of exchange of information, like a true, real, sit-down, over beer exchange of information between civilians and the police.
O'Neill is a member of the Campaign for an Elected Civilian Review Board. Their goal is to replace the current board that investigates civilian complaints against the police with an elected board. At the moment, all of the members of the board are appointed by city officials.
The fact that the members are appointed really does take away from the salience of the institution in terms of representing the interest of the community. Because even though the board is supposed to represent the community, in actuality, it doesn't. And if you look at it, and you look at it critically, it seems as though it was designed to do exactly what it's doing right now, which is to just put a small Band-Aid on a very large problem and to not actually work for the people that it should be representing.
In the past few years, the NYPD has implemented programs such as the Neighborhood Coordination Officer Program in an attempt to bridge the gap between civilians and police.
These officers go around and they talk to the different people in the communities and they get to know their problems.
But many in the community don't think this is enough.
What is that telling you? They have no respect for us. Making them live in a community where they live, making them work where they live, they're thinking twice about what they're doing.
It is NYPD policy that officers do not live in the same precincts that they patrol.
It's very difficult for a police officer or anybody else to know what they're going up against. If you encounter somebody that you may know from the neighborhood that has had problems in the past, you'll address it the way you need to address it at that time. Just like life changes from day to day, so does dealing with the issues of the community. It changes from day to day.
According to a database on police shootings run by The Guardian, 39 unarmed black men were shot by the police in the U.S. in 2016.
When they come and take our loved ones, the best they could tell you is, we're sorry. So that's not good enough.
For independent sources, I'm Clarissa Sosin.
When we come back, kosher or halal? It doesn't matter at one local Brooklyn sandwich shop. Finally from us, on the border of Bedford-Stuyvesant and Crown Heights in Brooklyn sits a Yemeni-owned Jewish deli. The Ghazali family serves classic Russian Jewish fare like brisket, corned beef, and pastrami on rye for a regular cast of characters. Marissa Holmes tells us more in this report.
Originally, this place is called David Brisket House. I mean, this place goes back to the 1950s. David put his business for sale in the 1970s. The owners were my uncle, Yemenite Muslim, and his partner was a Yemenite Jew. And then after that, in 1980, the Yemenite Jew decided he wanted to retire. So we took the business from him. I mean, my uncle ran it until 2010. I came over and took it over from him in 2011. And it's been under my management since then, but the recipe's always been the same since the 1960s. And hopefully it's gonna stay the same forever. So this goes through a process, which is the first process, which is fermenting it. From the fermenting, it has a lot of salt in it. So we rinse it in cold water, we keep it in there for like 40 minutes. And then after that, we move it back to the steamer. And I add a little bit of seasoning in there as well. A little bit of paprika, a little bit of oregano. I also add a sweet element in there to it too, but I can't tell you that one too. I'm gonna make pastrami on rye. People mainly come over here for one purpose. It's for brisket or corned beef or pastrami, nothing else. Like, they just don't walk in here if we don't have these three items. So we just decided to keep it the way it is and not add anything else.
Over 40 years they've been here.
Yeah. You picked them up on
I know, I've been coming for like about 25 years or more.
You want a sandwich?
And he's older than 25.
No, I'm 19.
Yeah.
This meat tastes like butter. He better be glad he ain't got no rooms here, because I'll move in.
All right.
You know, when I come in, I'll be looking for real corned beef.
You ready for me?
Guys, we're like, no, they're good. They're very good. It's always good. See what it looks like? That's what it looks like. That's what it is.
Originally it used to be kosher, but when we took over the business, we turned it into a halal business.
So it did change?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the names just halal, kosher, they're all the same. I mean, to me, in my faith, kosher is halal. We eat it. I mean, we try to hire people that we know of. So it's everybody that we hire is somebody that we know. I mainly do all the cooking, and if I'm not here, my son will do the cooking.
My dad started opening Sundays. Then from there, I started learning how to cook, and then I started working in the back. I started helping out with everybody. Then at like the first year, I already knew how to do everything in the restaurant. I started cooking. I know how to like work the slice machine. I know how to prepare everything. From there, it just like began to shift where you cover up for everybody. It's like everybody wants to take calls, just call Aladdin. He come cover up for you. That's fine.
Is that right?
That's the fun actually part. The fun part right there.
That's what we work. That's what. Yeah, like.
Argue, you fight, enemies become friends.
It just suddenly just ends up that person that works here. It's either a cousin or a brother or a nephew or someone really related to you from far or from close. But it's nice. It's nice to have it that way.
Yeah.
Because you don't feel you're an outsider.
So do you think you'll stay? Do you think you'll take it over from your dad?
I don't think so. I mean, I would expand. If we were expanding and stuff like that, open up something different, different business, I would definitely go into it and, you know, work there. But my main focus is I want to finish my school. I want to finish my education.
I have a guy, his name is, we call him, his business name is Famous Fat Dave. And he called me up one day and he decided, you know, he's like, we're doing a little refugee fundraiser. He thought it would be a good fit for us to be a part of that. And whatever funds that come through there, we send it overseas to Yemen to help, you know, the people that are affected with the war, poor people, people who are in need. So this is something that we always do on a, you know, local level. You know, we don't have any outside sources, just like within Yemeni community, people that we know, people who actually even come from the same village that we come from. So that money usually is collected every year, and it's not a lot, $100, but it does make a big difference.
The Ghazali family continues to raise funds to support their family and friends in the midst of an escalating war in Yemen. That's our show this week. Thanks for staying tuned. Till next time, be independent-minded.